Justin, Julian, Julian, Justin. Chapter 13. Julian discovers self. Weeks had passed since Justin's last meditation in Alcove 2. On this night, Alcove 2 was calling to him. He recognized it as a response to his thoughts about presenting himself to the farmers alone. He recognized that in Alcove 2, or possibly any one of the remaining 7 he had not yet entered to meditate, he could get the means and methods, the lessons, and how to develop self, his you, before presenting to the farmers who likely would see him as a wolf boy. He resolved to return to Alcove 2 tonight after he had rested from the day's travels. He fell asleep as Justin and awakened some hours later as Julian. At this point, he had no awareness of his given name, but in trying to tell his story, he often appeared as Julian without notice, out of nowhere, shifting energies as he is now trying to shift from wolf to man. As Julian, he descended the stairs, squeezed himself through the opening of the rolling stone gate he was never able to move sufficiently to give him a clear path, and entered the sanctuary with his torch held aloft. He then borrowed from the storeroom of relics 2 of the smaller versions of torches. Lighting one, he placed it in the sconce closest to the stairs. At Alcove 2 on the opposite side, he lit the other borrowed torch, placing it in the sconce at its entrance, and went inside with his self-made torch. Julian felt that he had to make amends for his long absence. So, talking as if to his teacher, the other man that he saw as a mist the last time he meditated, he explained by internal images, where his wolf language failed him, his utter confusion and his need to digest what had occurred that night in order to understand it. He talked of his injury at the copse of cedars, of his healing, and finally of his determination, recently arrived at, to be independent as other members of his pack had become. He showed that the independence he sought was that of a man, albeit one reared as a wolf by a family of wolves he will love forever. This act of attrition, of expiation, left him spent. He had no way of knowing if his assumed teacher had heard him or if he would be welcomed back. He sat at the back, near the basin that has pushed out flames, and relaxed. When he felt sufficiently relaxed, he lay down on the stone bench and turned his sight inward. Julian was like an empty vessel waiting to be filled. Soon he drifted off to sleep, but his sleep was more like a trance, with some consciousness. As a wolf might be conscious of the activities in the woods surrounding his or her den, for he was keenly aware of his existence and of his surroundings. Deeper and deeper he sunk into his trance until he felt removed from his body and into a vacant space. A space without form, without any means of identification, with rarefied air and numbing silence. Not afraid anymore, Julian did not flail around or try to escape. He looked around him, turning a full 360 degrees. At the point at which he began and ended his turn, his teacher The man of mist with the permanent smile appeared. Julian's first thoughts were, "He did not cast me out. He's still here." Then he stopped his thoughts and waited. Julian knew that he was being viewed. Oodles of time passed. He could not measure time. Before Julian closed his eyes and went inward again, there he was, the man of mist. Julian was not surprised. From somewhere within himself he heard, "It is well that you took the time you needed to understand what was shown to you. In that time, you have even learned that all that you need to survive beyond infancy is within you. So great was your effort to understand, you even created an event of injury to self. And then, what did you do? From within you, you found a way to heal yourself without the knowledge or input of either man or the wolves who nurtured you in infancy. Such is the power of spirit residing within you. How fortunate you are. Your spirit is untainted by the rules and regulations that man have created to diminish, override, to make believe that it does not exist, and take from some men this internal guide, leaving such men bereft and believing themselves alone and thus always in perpetual imbalance. And some other souls completely lost but learned in the ways of man. You have passed this test and can now move to alcove 3. As you progress, you will come to know how to achieve independence from your pack. Julian slept and was only awakened when Namchuk entered alcove 2 and howled softly. He was not sure if Julian was dead, and he did not want to sound an alarm for other members who were in and around the mound. Julian was surprised to see and hear Namchuk, for it was generally agreed that in this sacred place he was not in danger from predators. Namchuk encouraged him to stand, pushing him about with his head. Once Julian was in an upright position, Namchuk gently pushed him with all his accoutrements out the alcove doorway. Only when Julian reached the top of the stairs did he realize that the night was long gone and the day was almost over. Julian looked at Namchuk with surprise in his eyes and a smile on his face. They both headed for the river, where Julian dove in, then floated on the water looking at the orange-red, purple-gray-white clouds of sunset. Julian had never slept through a night and a day before. This is generally not possible in the lives of wolves unless they were seriously injured and were dying. Julian has had experience of how illness affected wolves, but had never experienced injury leading to death or the sleep of death. This long sleep must be something only man experience and survive. He says to himself, "This must be the first lesson, the beginning of my path to independence as a man." In and on the water, watching Mother Nature paint the sky, he felt wrapped in the warmth of kindred spirits, even though he knew none. More specifically, he had never experienced any kind of spirit outside himself. A feeling of change rushed over him. He fully accepted for the first time that he was man, and that his path through life was meant to be in a completely different direction than that of wolves. Fully immersed in the water now, he resolved to love and hoped to love the life of a human being. Namchuk sensed the change in Julian and for a moment did not know what to do. He left the water and sat on the shore, determined that whatever the change was, he would live up to his responsibility as Julian's security to protect him from predators, such as the bear and her cub, which appeared to be swimming toward Julian at that moment. He sounded the alarm and dove back into the water as Julian awakened from his very first realization and acceptance that he is man. Namchuk placed himself between the bear and her cub and Julian, providing the means of preventing Julian from being mauled to death. He had swum ashore. The bear had been stopped in her tracks, treading water. Waterfowls alighted to the air, while otters swam by with piles of sticks and their cubs on their bellies. In twilight, and when Namchuk reached the shore, Julian showed his appreciation, and they both started back up the valley to the mound. They ate and entertained each other in joyful play. This night was the first of a full moon, and after everyone had settled for the night, Julian, with no need for sleep, with Namchuk, climbed to the top of the mound to see what other creatures may pass or stop to investigate the wolves' den. Although there were the usual forest noises, including the hoots of owls, the only creatures they saw flitting amongst the high branches of the forest, it was an uneventful night.
Justin Julian Justin is the author. Hope Field's most recent book. Justin Julian, as well as her book about twin souls, Divine Love, is available at Amazon.com in ebook and paperback. If you have enjoyed listening to this first of 3 parts of Julian's Chapter 13, Julian Discovers Self, please like and subscribe. Subscription is, of course, free. Justin Julian Justin is the author. Hope Field's most recent book. Justin Julian, as well as her book about twin souls, Divine Love, is available at Amazon.com in ebook and paperback. If you have enjoyed listening to this first of 3 parts of Julian's Chapter 13, Julian Discovers Self, please like and subscribe. Subscription is, of course, free.